we've got Paul Shrimpling from the Remarkable Practice. Hello, thank you so much for coming here today. Well, today I brought you on here because I really wanted to ask you I think, quite important question. And that question is, what does humanising the numbers mean? And why is that important to you?
Okay. So accountants are experts at numbers. Everyone knows that. Every business owner goes to an accountant because they are experts in numbers. But interestingly, if I ran a session yesterday, Alex, with a large team, 36 people, 37 people, and all accountants, administrators, tax professionals in an accounting firm, and asked them to assess what they were brilliant at. And they all agreed that they were brilliant at doing the numbers work, the technical work of accountancy. And then I asked them how good they were at the human contact with their client. Now, human contact, what does that mean? Well, face-to-face in person is really human. We haven't done a lot of that in the last 12 months or so. Next is eyeball-to-eyeball contact, one-on-one, a little bit like you and I here. Next down from that is eyeball contact one-to-many. Down from that is maybe social media. One down from that is email or maybe letters. And all the accountants in this group yesterday, and I think that goes for most firms, would accept that they're better at the technical work than they are at the humanising work, the human work. As a consequence, there's a natural tendency for accountants want to revert to email to communicate, as opposed to actually pick up the phone or get on Zoom or get face-to-face. And my experience as a business owner over however many decades, too many to comment on, is that what I was crying out for and still cry out for as a business owner is that human contact with my accountant at key moments in time that enable me to feel a sense of certainty and security and confidence about my business now and in the future. Now, yes, there are numbers involved in that, but actually it's about the human contact, human interaction, which is why I hook up with Neil, my accountant, every quarter without fail. Historically, we shake each other's hands. Now we just say hi on Zoom, but it's the human contact that matters in terms of the value equation to the business owner, as much, if not more so, than the numbers do, the numbers work. So that's what I mean by humanising the numbers.
And so you mentioned about that equation. Could you explain a bit more about this equation, the value equation, the humanising? Because it's sometimes, especially when, from my point of view, when we're talking about that human, as you say, that face-to-face contact, that relationship, the certainty and the security and that support, sometimes it's really hard to put a quantity on that, but kind of an ROI on that.
You're sounding like an accountant, Alex, wanting to put a number on a feeling. How do I do that? So this is where, yes, understandably, a business owner would expect an accountant to talk about return on investment, profit, fees, costs, and so on. Tax, yes, et cetera, et cetera. But actually, the value that the business owner experiences from the work they do with the accountant is based on how the accountant makes them feel, not the numbers work. It's Maya Angelou, I think the author, said something like, people will forget what you did for them, but they will always remember how you made them feel. And so how do you make them feel in an email? How does that work? As opposed to, how do you make them feel face-to-face, eyeball to eyeball on a Zoom call? Well, now we can have a conversation and we can actually profoundly influence the way a business owner, a client feels, which you can't by email. And so if you want an equation, and I get asked this by firms of accountants, how do we turn this into something that works in the firm? Well, do you track and measure the number of face-to-face interactions you have with your clients? And I've yet to have a firm who says a categoric, yes, we do. So how do you track and measure the number of face-to-face interactions with your clients? And then you'll know whether you're driving the humanity of your accounting firm up or staying the same or driving it down. Well, if business owners, if your clients, if the accountant's clients value the way they feel about their accountant, and they do, well, hopefully they do, if they do it in the right sort of work, then if the accountant's having more human interactions as opposed to email interactions, then guess what? They'll feel a greater sense of value, likely to stay more, likely to buy more, likely to pay more, and likely to recommend you more. That's an equation I think it's worth taking deadly seriously, which most accountants are looking at recovery rates and chargeability and et cetera, which, okay, have got some value in the firm, but actually what matters to the client, measure what matters to the client. And it's like, how do you measure how the...
I'm sorry, I'm going to jump in. I was going to say, but what about for the business on a whole? What does it do for their business?
For the business owner, how does it help the business owner? Well, if business owners are out there walking around having had high quality interaction, face-to-face, eyeball-to-eyeball interaction with their accountant on, yes, their historical numbers, management accounts, annual accounts, tax they've got to pay, but also numbers that are future focused, then are they going to feel more confident, more certain about the decisions they're making to influence the future success of their business? Well, yes, they are. So if they feel better about those decisions because there's been a more and higher quality interaction, human interaction between accountant and business owner, then the businesses are going to be more successful. Well, if the businesses are more successful, they'll partly blame the accountant for that. Get in.
It's a win-win.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, absolutely.
I mean, that all makes sense. And I love that idea of actually measuring the human interactions and actually how much do we do that? And then there's a whole other conversation in terms of seniority and who is actually having those conversations, because we're hearing more and more now that, and this is a different topic altogether, but especially with the more kind of potential offshoring, outsourcing that happens as well, it actually has been opening up a lot more of these human interactions. And actually we're seeing it at a lower level, kind of with the junior levels, actually getting more client interaction earlier on in their career, which will only, I think, be a great thing. But one thing I'm left being curious about is about you and your history, and why is this important to you?
Okay, sit down. Why is it important to me? Okay, so I started a business. I was involved in helping my father start a business, which ended up being the family business. And my father's background was he was a manufacturing geezer. He made sofas and chairs, handmade sofas and chairs for some of the greatest interior designers in the world. It was the business. And during that time, we started small, and over about a decade grew it into a small £1 million turnover business. Now, that journey involved 2 really serious, deep recessions where the business really, really struggled. We started exporting, and there were challenges attached to that. We bought a building. There were challenges attached to that. At one stage, after my father had left, the business got into real challenges thanks to a serious recession and 1 or 2 other issues within the team and so on. And the fact that we'd invested in a Chelsea Harbour showroom. So if anyone's been to Chelsea Harbour, anywhere in Chelsea, you know what the real estate's like in terms of costs. So that was a cash drain, and almost lost the business. And I had to make a decision. Do we continue with this or do I just can it? So I decided to continue. Refinanced everything in my life so that we could keep the business going, did so, turned it round, got it ready for sale. So, and then in sale discussions with an outside buyer, where was my accountant, Alex? Where were they? Well, they were noticeable by their absence, is where they were. So I had an annual interaction with my accountant about accounts that were maybe 6 months old. And this is, I'm going back maybe 30 years now. Even then, we had software which told us what our management accounts were on either a monthly or a quarterly basis, accurate quarterlies, good signpost monthlies. And so he'd come in for 6 months after my year end and tell me how the business is done when I knew how the business is done, because I'm now into first half of the next year's out the way. So where's that relevance in that? So my passion, zeal, energy for working with the accountants comes from the fact that every business owner has taken the risk, faces challenges on a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly basis, is keeping people employed, buying from multiple suppliers, looking to grow their business, wants certainty and security. And an accountant who turns up once a year, emails them a few times in the year, There's where's the humanity? Where's the relationship? Where's the strength in relationship in that sort of arrangement? And I didn't see it as a business owner over way over a decade, facing all sorts of challenges on that journey. And so when I eventually got engaged to work with accountancy firms, I realized that actually there were different types of accountants, the ones who took the humanity seriously and the ones who only take the numbers work seriously. And what's clear, particularly in the last 12 months, just to bring it to the present tense, is that the firms who have better managed the humanity aspects of working with their team, they've stepped up the amount of team interface, team contact, eyeball to eyeball contact on a daily, weekly basis, even though we're working from home, and have done the same with clients, are the ones that actually are enjoying quite a successful time. The ones that haven't done that are maybe seeing that it's been more of a struggle.
So I was going to ask, actually, what are the biggest mistakes that you've seen without being, and what can people do if they're thinking, this feels like a stretch? Because I know that sometimes when I work with people, it's hard. And I once had a message from someone that said, I got into accounts because I love numbers and I want to do all this techno. And they work for one of the big four. And his quote was, I'm so wrong. I'm so wrong. I have to actually deal with people, and I'm feeling really out of my comfort zone. And what I also get is sometimes that people feel that they're not normal for not being a people person. And that can be actually something where we're actually, when I talk about having people skills and when we're talking about human, that isn't for people who are extroverted, I feel. It can be for anybody. So I was wondering, from what you have seen, what are the key mistakes that people make?
So what are the key mistakes people make who are naturally accountants and not naturally human people? Is that what you're asking?
Natural accountants. Yeah. Well,
right.
I'm feeling like I'm in a place where I don't want to exclude anyone. But equally, I think if we looked at accounting firms and inside of the firm, what are the mistakes that are being made? I think that would be quite interesting to hear.
Okay. I think one of the mistakes is we think we can take someone who's a particular style or type, if you want, in terms of their natural tendencies and natural psychometrics to want to do a particular type of work, accountancy, and turn them into an extrovert. Do we really need to turn them into an extrovert business advisor? No, we don't. We don't need to be that ambitious. Now, there's lots of research about, the bell curve, which goes introversion to extroversion. So the extroverts are at one end and the introverts at the other. The vast majority of people are omniverts. We've got a blend and a balance of extroversion and introversion. And so I think one of the mistakes is we assume that we've all got to be extroverts to be good human people. No, we don't. We just have to be exactly who we are, which is a blend of the two. Now, I appreciate there's still a spectrum within that part of the bell curve, but let's just accept who we are. And there's also the mistake that we think we can change people's psychology. Everybody wants to be a psychologist without realizing it, because they want to change people's motivations and drives for doing these things. Well, I'm not clever enough to do that, and even if I was, or if anybody was, would we be able to do it? I don't think so in my experience. But to flip it, what can happen is you change processes, you change systems, you change checklists, you change the technology so that people build skill around the tools. So different tools equals different skills. Now, everyone who's listening to this, with a very few exceptions, have all learned to drive a car, and they've all learned to ride a bike. Can they learn to use Xero or QBO, QuickBooks Online? Can they learn to use an app with a client? And the answer is, humans are pretty adaptable people. They can learn a new skill. And so Carol Dweck, who did some amazing research in schools in the US, points to essentially a statement that Henry Ford said, well, whether you think you can or you can't, you're absolutely right, which is as old as the hills. But Carol Dweck showed scientifically that if you educate kids on how the brain is wired, If you educate adults on how the brain is wired, you realize that if you repeatedly do something, you'll learn a new skill. Now, does it get harder as you get older? Some, but doesn't mean to say you can't learn a new skill. I'm learning to belay and climb at the moment. I'm 56. Can I learn to climb? Yes, I can. I've got to, because I'm taking my son to the Scottish mountains to do some deaf climbs. But, you know, do you think you can learn a new skill, or do you think you can't? Well, if you think you can, you will. And if you think you can't, then go and get a different job, because the technology is coming like a train and we've got to embrace it. Or if we resist it, what's going to happen? Well, job security is going to go down, is what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Sorry if that sounds a bit blatant and a bit aggressive, but it's you've got to face up to the brutal truths. You know, James, what was he called? James Bond Stockdale. He was shot from the skies over Vietnam. He was a pilot for the American Navy Air Force and spent 8 years in a concentration camp. And when he got out, a journalist interviewed him a few months afterwards and said, "Who didn't make it, James?" And he said, "The optimists." He said, "The ones who faced up to the brutal truths of the change that's coming are the ones that actually survive and thrive." So if you want a career in accountancy, which has got this technology to human journey taking place, from accounts to let's have more conversations with clients about those numbers, about those accounts, then if you're not willing to embrace that, then okay, you've got 5 years, maybe 10.
Yeah.
But the profession's changing.
Yeah, and we've seen so much of that. I mean, not just in the past year. The past year has been bonkers in terms of acceleration processes and
it's been brilliant, hasn't it? It's been brilliant.
It's been fantastic, but for a lot, it's been overwhelming, and there have been quite a few cases of, especially people, as you're saying, kind of old, later in life or later on in their career, who
it's not just them. Yes, Alex, but it's not just, I'm seeing that in some young players as well, some young accountants. It's not an age specific thing. It's not.
Yeah. And it's too much. It's not too much, as you said. It's how you approach it. And I love that study from Carol Dweck. It's amazing. And in fact, just the other study in terms of what she calls the growth and fix mindset, in terms of giving kids an example. And actually, if you're focused on the win, then, and just said, "Oh, you're amazing," then you actually never learn to love the doing and the learning. And so the children that just were told, "You're amazing, well done on your score," versus the ones that went, "You worked really hard on that, and you did really good job, and I can see where you applied yourself." They learn to love the doing of it, and that's when you adapt really easily to change, because it's not about the end result. It's
about doing the work.
About that.
And it's like, when a human being's at their best, when they're learning something, is the argument. When a human being's at the best, when they're learning something. So what's going on in firms so that they're helping, encouraging, supporting people learning new skill? Around what? Well, new skills usually associated with a tool. Which new tool? Well, the tool that's right for this client interaction, which nowadays is called an app. So it's, but I talked to Zoe Lacey Cooper in the last 7 days at the end of her experience in at Accountex, and I asked her what's the biggest challenge facing accountants. She said implementation. So what does that actually mean? She's right. How do we implement the new stuff? Build skill. If you don't grow your people, you will not grow your accountancy firm. Therefore, if we do grow our people's skills, not trying to mess with their head, just build skill, then some will build skill fast, some will build skill slow, but everyone will build skill. And as a consequence, you'll grow your firm because you're growing your people. Only if you grow your people will you grow your firm. And that's a human practice.
That is a human practice. I love that. And in terms of positive habits as well. And as you're saying, you can't change the psychology necessarily. It's not about that. I love that you said that, because it is, yes, there's a lot that can be changed. But for it's like me as a coach, I'm there to unlock what's already in there, not to create these new. I can't download a new skill. It's not like having a plug-in app.
Yeah.
It's what you've already got in there and playing to your strengths. And having that. And if you did that with all of your people, it's a bit like the James Clear book, Atomic Habits, mentions about the 1%. If you're better 1% every day, you know, the compound interest on the on how you can reach your potential. And there's never a finite, like there isn't a ceiling on that. It's an ongoing lifelong journey in a way, which can sound exhausting in a sense.
It's interesting. It can feel exhausting depending on how you interpret the job of work.
I like that. Yeah,
that's and again that's tapping into Carol Dweck's research again, is whether you think you can. So DIY is an example. So DIY in my world, DIY stands for destroy it yourself. Okay, which is why you hire other people to come in and do it for you. Okay, so that's my. I don't like DIY, but that's a program that I've been running in my head now. Because it's lockdown, and what else is there to do outside of work is DIY work. Well, it's just another form of work. Learning is just another form of work. Relaxing is just another form of work. It's all work. It's just different work. And so as soon as I've reached that place, it was like, oh, okay, well, that's DIY work. That's what we're doing. So I've refitted the utility room out, and I look at it going, well, there's the pro job in there and there's my job in there. I can't tell the difference. So I'm like, yes, I don't destroy things as much as I thought I did. Partly because I've looked at it in human terms, is my choice in terms of the work. What work? Build skill work, which requires repeated effort. Repeated effort again, repeated effort again, ideally at the edge of your skill level. So all the science about learning to play a musical instrument, a language, driving a car, is you repeat things at the edge of your skill level, not within your skill level, at the edge. And that's where one of my challenges to the leaders and managers of accounting firms is how ambitious are you for your children? What are your expectations of your children? They go, oh, yeah, my expectations are really high. It's okay. What are your expectations of your team in your firm? Well, some of them I only expect down here, and some of them, there's one or two up there. And so, okay, it's interesting is, do you do that with your kids? And they go, no, I wouldn't do that with my children. I wouldn't do that with my children. Okay, well, and it comes back to, this is a line. It's not my line. I've borrowed it, stolen it from Nigel Bennett of Hallidays up in Stockport. And I was in a meeting a long time ago when Nigel said, isn't it interesting how our people perform down to our expectations of them? So my challenge to people listening to this is, if you want a really human business, appeal to the 2-year-old that's living in all of us, and raise your expectations levels of them. And then all of a sudden you look and work with them and speak to them, and your body language tells them that you've got high expectations of them. Are they more or less likely to achieve more? Isn't it obvious? If you expect low things, guess what they'll deliver? They'll deliver low things. If you expect high things, they'll deliver high things. Okay, it might take time, but let's help all of our team grow, put processes, tools, skill, learning in place in our firm to build human businesses, human accountancy businesses that, when they've built the skill, will happily jump on Zoom and have an eyeball-to-eyeball conversation with a client, so that you can drive the human numbers attached to client value, because we want to influence how they feel. And that's a human thing. It's not a numbers thing. We use the numbers as a tool to facilitate a strong, deep, meaningful conversation. And so hopefully from this conversation, I spend a lot of time challenging accountants around the status quo, so that actually they then end up connecting deeper with their team, deeper within what they want personally as well, but have the team also connect in a deeper and more regular way with their clients. Because as a business owner, it didn't happen for me. And I went on a 10-year journey without the support that I could have had, if I'd have chosen an accountant who was committed to the human side, not just the number side.
And
so
I think
got a bit of Paul in there.
Well, that's the thing. And do you know what? I was just thinking, I don't want to use the word noble, but if we're going to need anything, as certainly if businesses are going to need anything in the coming years, it's going to be that voice and that thing. So thank you so much for sharing that.
It's the connection. At the time where it's been really hard to connect, It's the volume. And this is just one last thing. If you're going to build skill, accountants want to be right first time. Okay. When you build skill, that just won't work. You've got to be willing, open up a little bit to, oh, I might cock this up. I might make a few mistakes. Yeah, you will. And it's the repetition at the edge of your skill means that you're going to mess up. And so it's going to be a struggle. And if there's a parting image, it would be this. When a butterfly escapes from the pupa, so, it was a caterpillar, and then it's winds silk around its tail and becomes a pupa. And then when it's breaking out of the pupa, it struggles. And someone was telling me a story about someone who saw this happening and went with a little scalpel just to help the butterfly out of the pupa. And the butterfly got out the pupa, but it couldn't fly when it got out, because the struggle to get out forces the blood down the wings so that it can fly. So if we all accept that actually struggle is healthy, if we're learning new skill at the edge of our skill level, then we've been like the butterfly escaping from the pupa, and then later we will fly. And I think that's a human business is one that helps their team build skill, connects them up in a deeper way with their clients, i.e. just talk to them more often. Because there's an open loop around quality versus quantity. How do you build skill? Get it right first time, or just do it a lot? And the answer is do it a lot. Just do it more. Open Zoom. Go for it. It's like, I'm going to mess it up. No, you're not. You're a human being. So is the person on the other phone, on the other side of Zoom. And with everyone's got more forgiving with Zoom. We've had technology challenges at the beginning of this. We're all a little bit more accepting of that now, because that's the world we've been living in.
It's the world we're dealing with. At least we haven't got a 3-year-old that's jumping in on, I think, our last phone conversation. It's a year ago.
But you see, how human is that though, Alex? I've been talking to people in firms who go, and I feel as I'm letting the side down when my 3-year-old waltzes in and starts screaming at mommy or daddy. And it's like, no. All your clients are in the same boat. They all accept. And it's like, oh, how lovely is that? I've not seen a 3-year-old for a year. I'd love to see a 3-year-old screaming at me. So there
exactly.
we go.
It's bringing that all together, and it's been amazing. And oh my gosh, I'm still reveling in the whole butterfly thing, because I think that was my first ever pet as well.
Oh, right.
Well, I say that I kept the chrysalis in a jar, but I kept him. I called him Fred, and I had him for 5 years before I gave up on him. But it wasn't. But it's amazing that we have to do that struggle work, and you have to do the work to make it happen. And
repeatedly,
that's something I see a lot, especially when it comes to softer skills and these things, is because accountancy and finance is one of the places where the learning, well, apart from in fact, professions, so you could say the same for medical and lawyers. You have, it's very binary learning process. So the whole career is yes or no, wrong or right, and there is only one answer basically. But all of the other skills, you have to actually learn to explore and actually almost aim to fail in some ways, so that you get that learning. And I say aim to fail, but every fail is still a valuable experience. It's not invaluable. So there has to be a kind of separation of, okay, there's one area where it's not good to fail, but there is but it's like a mock exam. But unfortunately, there are no mock exams when it comes to learning those human skills. You just got to get out there. You just got to do it. And you've got to some sense, own it if it does go wrong, and really think about. And I had a session on Tuesday with a group where I actually challenged them and said, okay, guys, what's the worst that's going to happen when it comes to, now with accounting, the actual technical skill? Yes, there's a lot that could go wrong. I'm talking about the relationship, right? Can I ask you, what are you scared of? What is holding you back from having this conversation with your clients? And what are you scared of? And there was so much: scared that they'll see me, scared that they'll challenge me, scared there'll be an argument was one of them, scared that they'll leave, scared that they won't pay. And there was a lot of, and I just went, all I'm hearing is a lot of fear, lot of fear in there. So let's deal with that and say, we're just going to throw it out.
Yeah, but it's was it I can't remember Susan's surname. Feel the fear and do it anyway is a good reference point for that. I can't remember her surname, Susan whatever.
We'll lift it up.
Yeah.
But
Well,
anyway,
I was going to say my sister's a voice coach, so she trains people to sing to a very high standard, and she works in performing arts colleges as well as one-on-ones, and she regularly will come across someone who's got a fabulous voice and loves performing in their own bathroom, metaphorically, and then go to pieces, when they go on stage. In fact, can't actually get to go on stage, Lynn's approach is very much so. What's going on? Where's the fear? It's bubbling up from here, and it's bubbling up from there, and this bothers me, and that bothers me, and so on. He said, "Okay, do you love singing?" Yes. He said, "Do you want to have an impact on a lot of people, i.e., an audience?" Yes, I think. Yes. Or one person in the audience. How's that? Yeah, I can do that. I'll do that. Okay, well, put one person in the audience then. It's me. Get on stage. Which is a rehearsal. And then they put 2 in, then they put 20 in, and then they fill the auditorium up over time. And you can see what Lynn's doing is at the edge of their skill level and to a degree psychology. And accountants are brilliant at finding things going wrong because they've been trained that way. So when they see themselves do something wrong, they stop. It's like, no. It's, we've got to do things wrong at the edge of our skill level, and we'll improve and we'll become a more human practice. We'll be more human with our clients, we'll be more human with our team. And as a result, my experience over the last 18 years of working exclusively with accounting firms is they'll be more profitable, they'll be more successful, and they'll feel a greater sense of pride and enjoyment in what they're doing. That's a human accounting practice.
There you go. It's win-win all over there. Well, Paul, we've come to the end of our time together, which has made me very sad indeed, because I could actually listen to you talk for the rest of the hour, I think. But what I would love to know, and I'm sure everyone else here, is where can we get more of you? Where do we find you? And also do tell us about your podcast as well.
Okay. So you can go to www.remarkablepractice.com. There's no just so that you know. It's just www.remarkablepractice.com. And you can get access to all sorts of information. I would suggest if you go there, go to the blog, and we do a blog every week connected to some piece of learning, no surprise there, that will challenge your thinking and maybe challenge your skills too, typically connected to Humanise the Numbers, which leads me on to the podcast. So we've, over the last 14 weeks, been doing a podcast every week at humanisethenumbers.online. And Twitter, I'm not a big user, but I'm there. My team populate that, and but on LinkedIn. So if you look up Paul Shrimpling, there is only one. And you can find me at LinkedIn, and I'll respond to every message anybody ever sends to me. That's a promise I made to myself a long time ago. So if you want to have an interaction there, then reach out and I'll do what I can to help.
Incredible. Well, thank you so much for all of that. Just brilliant stories. And anyone who brings up Carol Dweck is always an absolute winner in my eyes. So there you go.
Very good.
Okay. Well,
it's been a real pleasure. Thank you, Alex.
So thank you. Well, those of you in the group, thank you so much. And do let us know what your key insights were and what you've really enjoyed about this session. Paul is actually in the group, so I'm sure you could also ask him questions in there as well.
You can. I'm not a big Facebook user there. Forgive me.
No worries. Okay, bye everyone.